Good morning, everyone. Thanks, David. I'd like to start by saying we've put a whole lot of work and effort in over the past couple of years. It's not quite reflected in this half result, but I tell you what, I believe where we're going to start to see the fruits of our labour over the next year or so. We're now stepping up into our biggest ever build program, which is exciting for the team, and it's also exciting for our next generation of residents and the staff who are going to work with us at Villages. We anticipate delivering more than 900 units and beds this financial year, up from 757 last year and 532 the year before. So you can see we're really lifting our build rate now. As you can see, we've been through a quieter period as we've worked our way through the design and planning stages to develop the villages and the land bank, and we're just starting to come out the other side of that, which is really good to see. We've learned a lot, particularly in Victoria. We've invested significantly in our development, design and construction teams and removed a whole lot of blockages to speed up the process of developing new villages, both in terms of what we do internally, but also the relationships we have externally as well. We also recognise that Tom Brownrigg's construction team was a little skinny at the top, I think, and we've appointed Paul Blackler as our New Zealand construction manager, and we have Martin Osborne overseeing our Victorian construction team, and they're both supported by a team of regional managers that we've recently added to. The health and safety team has also got a lot more resource, because getting everyone home safe each day is just obviously one of our most key priorities. We've also worked on our relationships and the way we consult and work with communities and councils. We've speeded up the time it is taking to process applications and consents, and particularly in Auckland actually. We've actually dramatically improved our working relationship with Auckland Council, which at times needed to be improved. And by working together, we've cut the time down from building consents from what was 68 days for quite a considerable period of time down to 25 days today. And it's a credit to both sides of the team actually. So you can't sustain an increased build rate without a significant land bank. And now we have 7,074 beds and units to develop spread across 22 sites. We have significantly lifted our land bank over the past 3 years to match our growth aspirations in New Zealand and Victoria, and also our financial aspirations for the growth of Ryman. During the first half, we've added 2 new sites, one at Hyatt in Melbourne, and one at Northwood in Christchurch. So if you take a look at this next slide here, this shows where we were at across our current sites back in September 18. And I guess the most striking feature is there's lots of dots that don't have a colour in them. So we're currently underway on 10 of our 22 land bank sites, and we're hoping to have 2 more underway by the end of March to take us to 12 sites under development. This is without a doubt the biggest program of development, the biggest phase of development in Ryman Healthcare's history. So the next slide shows the progress that we've made getting these 13 sites, well, 12 sites targeting, could be 13, through design, consenting and council approval. In fact, the slides are now out of date because I found out late last night that we had our plans endorsed at Geelong, which is fantastic. On the development of the land bank over the coming years, we expect to be providing homes for more than 20,000 people. And when you think about the fact we look after 11,500 people today, that's significant growth over the next few years. So perhaps we'll go on a bit of a tour around our sites, eh? Let's start with Victoria. A good example of the work we've done to remove blockages and speed up the way that we get projects through the pipeline is our new village at Aberfeldy in Melbourne. We bought the site back in May 2018. We designed it and we were granted development approval for it by August 2019, which by the way I watched on a live Facebook feed from the council. They have great transparency of voting over there. And we settled the final payment for the site in September 2019. We've cleared and prepared the site, and yesterday we got our endorsed plans stamped, so we are all good to go. So what that means in Australia is that in New Zealand, when you do a development, each and every stage has to have building consent for it separately. In Australia, they have to sign the whole thing off at once at the start. So it's a much bigger milestone to get in New Zealand what we would think of as building consent in Australia, because it's the whole thing. So not only is development approval important, but getting endorsement of plans. So getting that done so quick has been great. So overall, at Aberfeldy, we've gone from buying the site to be able to be in a position to start construction within 18 months. And that's a great achievement by the team, and it's very different to some of our earlier acquisitions. I'm really pleased to announce our 11th site acquisition in Victoria today. So Hyatt, it's a blue chip suburb, and the site is next to the train station and the shops, and couldn't be better for residents and staff, I don't think. It has a stellar catchment, and we're confident a Ryman village will serve the area really well. And I really believe that even more firmly after I spent a Friday afternoon at the Southland shopping mall, which is a big shopping mall locally, and saw lots of grandparents picking up their grandchildren from kindergarten or school, and it looked like excellent demographics for us and a really good sort of area for us to be providing a community. So the site already actually has a development approval for a retirement village from a previous operator, and we've lodged an amendment for the approval with Bayside Council, and we hope to be underway soon. So Hyatt is the latest in a great lineup in Victoria. We have two large villages under construction, Nellie Melba and Burwood East, and also early site works are also underway at Highton in Geelong, where we've just got our endorsed plans, as you know, and also Aberfeldy, where also we just got endorsed plans. Both of those were yesterday. Pre-sales have just got underway at Highton with good demand already, and we would expect our first new residents to arrive mid next year at both Highton and at Burwood East. So you're probably wondering what our fifth village is going to be by the end of 2020, because that's been one of our targets for a while. So you'd be going Geelong or Highton, you'd be going Highton and Geelong, Burwood East, Nellie Melba, where Dunlop's done. What's the fifth one going to be? And I'd like to know what the fifth one's going to be too. So it's probably most likely to be Aberfeldy. But Hyatt might not be too far behind at this rate. And if you think about Ocean Grove, that's a townhouse development. And so that might get away to a flyer as well in the next sort of few months. So if we get development approval there. So the great news for the construction team to achieve this goal of at least 5 by 2020 is that 2020 is a leap year. So that means they get an extra 24 hours of build. So I think that's a great bit of extra time for them. So just finishing where we're at in Victoria, we have development approval for Coburg, and we've also submitted development approval applications for Mount Martha and also Mount Eliza. We opened our first Melbourne village in 2014, and now we have over 650 residents across Wiri Dunlop and Nellie Melba. We have 11 sites, 10 of which are either operating, under heavy construction, have development approvals or development plans about to be submitted. Ringwood East actually is the only site without plans lodged, and we're expecting to do that with Marinda Council very soon. So what is really encouraging is the level of activity we're seeing in Victoria, which really shows, I think, 6 years of hard work from a whole bunch of people, and the experiences we're learning, some of the scars we're getting from delays and frustrations. It's all building off, and we're really starting to build our brand there. And in fact, on the brand point, we have had a record 6 months in Victoria, exchanging contracts with more than 250 residents in the form of new sales, resales or care agreements. We've also recruited a new design team over there. We've got some talented individuals and they're bedding in well. And as I've said earlier, with Martin Osborne heading up as Victorian Construction Manager, we've got a great build team there. He's actually recruited the project managers for our next wave of villages, and he's very fussy about making sure all recruits are above the Ryman line, which is one of our key ways that we go about selecting people. What's quite interesting is meeting our staff in Melbourne is that we've got a higher purpose at Ryman in terms of looking after people, doing things that will be good enough for your mum or your dad. And the staff that I deal with, the people I meet in Melbourne who work for us, they see it as a very refreshing difference to be working with a company with a strong purpose. And I think it contrasts quite strongly with, perhaps lots of other businesses these days. On the care front, Nellie Melba was subject to a surprise audit a few weeks ago. This is part of the government's new aged care and quality standards regime where all audits are unannounced. And in fact, unfortunately for the team, that happened to be a couple of days while I was visiting. So I made sure I didn't get in the way too much. We had really positive feedback from the auditors. They liked what they saw around our rosters, lots of our service provision, care, how my Ryman was working, you name it. And actually we met 100% of the new standards, which only came into effect from the 1st of July, so that's no mean feat. And I was really proud of the team actually. And look, the stats are that since those new standards came into place from the 1st of July, about a quarter, I think it is, of aged care facilities in Australia have had surprise audits where all the standards have not been met. So we've done really well first up. We're really busy in New Zealand as well. We spotted a gap in our village network in Christchurch for a new suburb in the north, and we've purchased a large new site at Northwood. And as a Christchurch person, I think that's an awesome photo of Christchurch, by the way. Northwood was developed in the late 90s and early 2000s and has grown fast. And there is a lot of new development around it as the city spreads north. We think Northwood will be a great place for Ryman community, and it's now subject to Overseas Investment Office approval. And by the way, we've received a couple of those in the last few months, so we know how to handle that process well. Our New Zealand triplets, which we call Murray Halberg, William Sanders and Linda Jones in Hamilton, they are also growing up. The care centre is open at Murray Halberg, and William and Linda's care centres are following close on its heels. Getting the care centres open are always real major landmarks for the villages and represent a huge amount of work from our teams on the ground. They give the village a heart, and we show we mean business when it comes to care. They drive sales as well because of the peace of mind they provide for residents, and all three villages are selling well and will deliver new stages during the second half to drive new sales. And just quickly, when we were at the hotel last night, one of our colleagues, Andrew Gibson, who's our hospitality services manager, he'd been at Murray Halberg all day, getting all the kitchens and the cafes and everything set up. And he said to me that I think it might be our best village yet. So that's what you love to hear when we're just getting better all the time. Construction is well underway at Lincoln Road. We held our public meetings last month to introduce ourselves to the people of the West. We had great numbers and a really warm response actually. If there was a theme, it was an interest in our integrated care system, and in particular dementia care. Here's one of Lincoln Road's first residents on the left there. Her name is Joyce Carswell, who's waiting for us to build her new home. Joyce spent a long career working at Laidlaw College, our neighbour at Lincoln Road, and we actually bought the land off Laidlaw College, and Joyce wanted to downsize her home and reduce the burden of maintenance and gardening, but stay in Henderson and enjoy more time with her family. She loves the area and says if she lived anywhere, it would have to be Lincoln Road in Henderson, so she can stay connected with her local church and community. She's picked a sunny downstairs unit near the village centre, and we're looking forward to handing her over the keys. Site works are well underway at Havelock North, and it looks like it's going to be a flyer with massive interest. It's sort of the talk of town, even the talk of Napier just about. Moving around the country more, we're also getting established at Hobsonville with construction proper starting early next year. We've also redesigned our Karori village to take into account heritage and earthquake strengthening concerns, and we held another round of community consultation there last week. There's strong interest in the village in Karori from potential residents, and when they talk with our team, they just cannot wait for us to get going. That's what they want to see happen. We're delighted to have Shane Chalmers joining the team as our Chief Operations Officer in January. Shane has a clinical background and has held a number of senior roles in health in both New Zealand and also Australia. She's been in Melbourne for the past 10 years, so that's ideal for us, where she's been Monash Health's Executive Director of Residential and Support Services and also the Chief Nursing and Midwifery Officer. Monash Health is the biggest public healthcare provider in Victoria and has a superb reputation. She's a nurse, she understands aged care, she has led healthcare teams on both sides of the Tasman, she's a first-class leader and a great developer of people. And she also told me that she knew she wanted to be a nurse from about the age of 6. So it's great to have her joining the team and we're looking forward to working with her. David mentioned a lot of new things we're doing for our residents. So the team and I are always looking to do better, make no mistake about that. So it's been really good to see our most recent care relative and service department resident surveys, which both lifted from what were already really high levels. This is a real credit to the team in the field and the support that they get. But you know, Kevin Hickman's mantra always sticks with me. He used to say all the time, as soon as you think you've made it, you've had it. And I believe that's so true, and that's why we always strive to do things better all the time. And look, sometimes we get things wrong, and when we do, we own it, we fix it, we apologise and we learn from it. So to keep everyone happy, we need great staff. And as David mentioned, we want them to love working with us. We continue to increase staff pay in the half, to innovate in the way that we train, and to find ways to identify talent and the leaders of tomorrow and to develop their careers. We're about to send our first group of senior leaders to the Melbourne Business School, in fact, forming a new partnership with them for the first of 4 leadership modules. So what I love about it is that it is a Ryman Advanced Leadership Program. It's not the Melbourne Business School Advanced Leadership Program. We've worked with them closely to develop a course specifically around our values and our culture that we want to preserve. And at the end of the day, we're going to have to develop more Romanians. And part of that is making sure that the leadership team have the capacity and the skills to be able to do that better than today. So what does the future look like? Well, our challenge is to build as many Ryman communities as we can for people who need them. We want them to benefit from the Ryman experience. We want to create great careers for people with a purpose. The shift in demand that we will see over the coming decades is extraordinary. In my view, we are, as a society, a very long way off properly understanding it and a very long way off planning for it. Lots of people talk about the ageing population. I don't think people really understand how significant it is. So let's look at it from a global perspective for a minute. Today there are 143 million people in the world aged over 80. By 2050, there will be 426 million people aged over 80. This is much more pronounced in the Western world, where 1 in 4, 1/4 of the population, will be over retirement age by 2050. And this is what it looks like in 2100. Another way of looking at it is to consider that it's taken 200,000 years for the population of humans over 80 to reach 143 million, but it's only going to take 30 years for that to triple to 426 million. Now, that is a very dramatic change on Earth. The challenges ahead in caring for older people and creating communities where they can be happy and secure are enormous. We're not daunted at it by Ryman. We are excited about it. We're fired up. At Ryman, we see meeting the challenge as actually a great privilege and something we want to play a big part in. And that's why we've been working so hard to gather the momentum that I'm sure you can see building right across the board. So thank you very much. Cheers.